Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home. Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So happy to have you here. It is a great day to be alive, and I mean that. There's so much to be grateful for, and I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're able to tap into that. Just think briefly on the fact that you're even listening to this right now. The fact you're listening to this means you have a computer or a smartphone and you are tapped in. You're tapped into the internet. How cool is that? The internet's an amazing thing. And if you are able to listen, it means that you have your ears and you have your ability to listen. And that's a super cool thing. Or watch if you're watching on video. So I'm not going to ramble on about that, but just imagine how cool our lives are that we get to enjoy such luxuries. So yes, it's a great day to be alive, and it's a really big pleasure to have you here with me today. I'm going to talk about something that is just so critical to every human being's experience of life, and I'm really excited about that. Before I begin, I just want to invite you to jump over to the Heal Your Hunger Tribe on Facebook. Just type in Heal Your Hunger Tribe and request to join. This is where we hang out as emotional eaters. I bring to you cool speakers, little updates on my life and lessons that I have to share about overcoming emotional eating, about health, and just really being the best version of you. So I hope you'll join me there. Now, on to our topic, and the topic is crying. How to have a good boo-hoo and just really have it enhance your life. So the reason why I wanted to share about this is that I have people in my life who I run across people also, whether if I'm in some kind of retreat session or work retreat or personal growth retreat, or I'm in a meeting of some kind, when something emotional comes up and somebody is touched and they begin to cry, notoriously and very typically, they will apologize. Okay, they'll say, I'm sorry, and they'll push back the tears. They'll try not to cry, or they always apologize. And I just want to stand up and say, stop apologizing. This is an amazing thing. It's great that you're crying. It's great that the tears are flowing. So I want to dig into this because I just want to give you a very gentle reminder that tears are healing. And when you allow them to flow, when you allow yourself to feel, that's when you can heal, right? Feel, deal, and heal. And that's our only hope of overcoming emotional eating. You can't stay an emotional island. You can't stay emotionally shut down and expect to heal from emotional eating, because we eat over our emotions. And if you don't know what those emotions are, and if you're not willing to feel them, you can't ever address them and heal them, which means you're always going to need to pack them down with food or something else, whether it be coffee or, TV or Facebook or, some other kind of unhealthy habit like spending too much money or whatever it is, alcohol, drugs, you name it. There's a jillion things we can stuff our emotions down with. And so I want to just share with you that the most effective way to heal is to go straight through it, and that means letting the tears flow. Now, people are apologizing for crying because they're embarrassed to be seen. Okay, so it brings in that shame of what people are going to think of me. It also is something where people think crying equals weakness. So if somebody sees them cry, it means they're weak. Now there are some settings that perhaps it's not as healthy to cry, like in your job, or if you're in a negotiation with somebody and you feel emotional. There are times when I've gotten emotional and I have tried to hold it together until later when I could have a good cry. So that might be appropriate. But otherwise, wherever you are, if you're not in a work setting or something like that where you have to stay composed, let the tears flow. That's my message today. But I want to get into what tears are all about, okay? Because I think it's really fascinating. Now, there are 3 types of tears that humans experience. The first one are basal tears, and the tear ducts secrete tears constantly. And this is, it's actually, tears are protein rich, and they have liquid in them that's antibacterial. So it keeps the eyes moist and healthy, okay? So that's why we blink, is to bring those tears on and to keep our eyes
watery, so they don't get dry out, and so they keep working. We want that, okay? We want basal tears. The next one is reflex tears, and these are triggered when we have, something in the air that irritates our eyes, okay? So it's a wind or smoke or a particle. This happens with onions as well, if you've ever cried over cutting an onion. So this is released to flush out any kind of irritants in the air, okay? Any kind of pollutants, and this is very necessary. We don't want dirt covering over our eyes, little particles that are wandering around in the air. The last kind of tears that humans experience are emotional tears. And yes, these are the ones I'm talking about today. These are tears that we shed in response to emotions that we have. And these are the tears that must flow, okay? These are the ones you don't want to hold back. And actually, our emotional tears hold a higher content of hormones. So they actually have stress hormones in them. So literally when you cry, you are releasing stress hormones. That's why you want to cry, okay? That's why you want to let those tears flow, because you want to get that stuff out. It's a form of detoxifying those stress hormones. So let those tears flow. Now, it's really interesting that humans are the only ones that have emotional tears. It's possible, research shows that it's possible that elephants and gorillas do as well. But other than that, we're it. We're the emotional ones on this planet. And good for us, right? Good for us. It gives us a much richer experience of life, an emotional experience of life, which I understand you might not like all the time, especially if you're an emotional eater. But guess what? Without pain, without emotional pain, we also limit emotional joy as well. So just kind of try to pivot away from thinking that emotions are bad and yuck, we don't want them. I'll do anything but to feel, anything not to feel, which means eating usually. Just imagine that the more you feel, not only the more you can heal, but the more joy you can feel as well. Now, it's really cool. I learned through my research that in Japan, they are they believe so strongly in the benefits, the healing benefits of crying, that they actually have created something called crying clubs. And this is literally a place where you go. The Japanese word for it is ruikatsu, and it literally means tear seeking. Okay, so people literally come together in these clubs, and they do things like watch sad movies, tear jerkers, as they're called, right? And this helps the tears flow. So they literally have sob fest, okay? So they're literally letting it flow because they know this releases stress and this is actually healthy for you. So isn't that funny that they do that? But it's also true in research that different kinds of tears literally do release stress hormones, and not only do they have the healthy benefits of detoxifying the air, what comes through our eyes from the air, but literally they can help relieve stress and automatically induce our mood, okay? So have you ever felt like when you've cried that you feel better? Like you have a cry, you're in intense pain and you're boohoo, boohoo, boohooing, and then afterwards it's like a spring rain, right? Like the rain comes, it pours, it dumps all this rain, and then there's this beautiful fresh feeling in the smell in the air and feeling of just cleansing, right? That's what we've experienced when we cry. I know you've experienced it. Crying is not fun. It brings up, it's stoked by painful feelings. It almost intensifies those feelings in the moment when we're crying. But afterwards, there's this amazing release. And I'm going to talk about the benefits of crying in just a few minutes beyond that. But that release is powerful, so powerful. Because when we cry, it's because my experience is I cry after there's this buildup of stress and buildup of pressure. Like I'm trying to hold it together, and then I just can't. And then there's that pressure point and that pressure release valve where all of a sudden you start to cry. And do you remember feeling that you're just kind of coming unglued, right? You just sort of come unglued, and it's sort of like letting the air out of a balloon. Well, that is an amazing experience of relieving stress, and that is, again, what we want. We don't want to live in that tight pressured place where we're holding it together all the time. That is not healthy, folks. That is not healthy for you or for me. So really just, I want to really change your thinking on this and just give you a pep talk on crying. That's what this show is today. It's a pep talk on crying. I'm here to advocate for your emotional well-being, which will automatically translate into a healthier relationship with food, because when we are tight, when we're holding it together, when we want to be in control, we reach for food to help us do that. Because when we pack those feelings down with food, we have this illusion of keeping it together. Now let's talk about letting go. Let's talk about what happens when we cry and we feel like we're breaking down. And again, this is why sometimes people apologize, because they're like, oh, I'm such a mess, or oh my God, look at me, like I'm coming apart. My makeup is, washing down my face. This is so embarrassing. Again, we're so concerned about what people think, and people really don't care. And they're not thinking all the terrible judgmental thoughts that we assume they are. This is why we apologize. We're like, oh, they're thinking I don't have it together. They're thinking, I'm weak. But really, that's us thinking that. We're thinking that, and we're projecting it on other people. Other people are not judging us like we're judging us. So those are your thoughts. Those are your self-judgments of yourself when you cry. And I just want to encourage you to let that go. Be sweet to yourself. Crying is no big deal. You break down to break through. Have a breakdown. Go for it. Let yourself fall apart. Break down to break through, my friends. And that's what's happened for me. When I've just said, screw it, I can't keep it together anymore, I go and lie down on my bed and I have a good cry. Oh my gosh, all kinds of things happen after that. First of all, I usually have a great nap. So I have a great nap. But also, I end up just feeling refreshed. I feel empowered. I have new ideas. When we get really constricted and contracted and we're in that pressure point, where we're trying to hold together and we're all tight, no new information is coming in there. We can't see or feel our inspiration. But when we cry, when we let go, when we soften, when we let that air out of the balloon, all of a sudden we have channels through which new ideas and creativity can come. So really, I encourage you to embrace that experience. Also, have you ever experienced grief? Grief is an amazing thing. There are 5 stages of grief, and grief is just, that's for real. When my dad died 19 years ago, I had so much grief, and it was the first time I had really had somebody close to me pass away, and or anything really traumatic where I experienced a loss. And I was amazed at how real grief is, and I would be like standing in the checkout line and it would just come over me. It comes over like a tidal wave, and it's its own thing, and I could not hold it back, nor did I want to. I was conscious enough at the time where I'm like, I'm going for this. Like, I'm letting it come because I don't want to stuff it. I don't want to stuff these feelings. I don't want to emotionally eat over my dad dying and the grief I had. So if I was in the checkout line and I saw an older couple and I remembered my dad and how he's sick and he's never going to be able to grow old with my mother, boy, oh boy, the tears would just roll. And I just sat there, or stood there in the checkout line with my groceries in my hand, and I just let myself cry. And sometimes people would look at me like, why is that woman crying? And I didn't care. I could have cared less, because it was more important to me that I go through my grief rather than stuff it. So grief is real, and if it comes over you, if you experienced a loss of some kind, and you have that overwhelming need to cry all of a sudden, like it just washes over you, let it come. Let it just flow over you. Let yourself feel it, and just it moves past you. That's the thing, is when we go through it, it moves beyond us, and then we can go back to our normal state of being, until next time. And next time, let it come again. So grief is real. The tears are real. The overwhelming feeling of grief is real. Roll with it. If you're going through grief right now, please, I beg you to roll with it. It's so healthy. Let that stuff out. Let those toxins out. And another thing I want to say about tears is that when you let yourself break down in that way, you create movement inside of yourself, okay? So, so much of the time we have trapped emotion inside of ourselves, and when we cry, it allows for movement of that emotion. It rearranges things, and it allows stuff to flow and flow out of us. It also does that in our minds. So much of the time when we're holding it together, we can get really stern, really serious, really, controlling in our lives, maybe bitchy, right? Where we're, barking orders at other people. That's what happens when we're trying to hold it together. So let yourself cry and let your mind relax and let it all go, all that control. And so that's your body, that's your mind. Let's talk about your spirit. When we let ourselves cry, we are basically surrendering. We're experiencing a spiritual surrender, which is essentially saying to the universe, I cannot do this. I cannot do this. I need help. And you might not say the words, I need help. I generally do, because I like to have that conversation going with God. But, when I finally cry, when I'm at that tipping point and I finally just break loose, the floodgates open and I cry, it is a spiritual surrender, because I, at some level, am admitting I cannot do this on my own and I need help. And it's a surrender. And there's nothing more spiritual than surrendering our lives and just stopping being in control mode. God is there to hold us. God is there to catch us, when we fall, when we release, when we just fall back into the feelings that we're having. So, have that experience, allow for that experience, for God or the universe, whatever you call it, the Holy Spirit, to catch you when you fall. It's so beautiful, and you'll feel it. That's why we feel good afterwards, because we've surrendered, we haven't died, and then we just realize, wow, like I don't have to run the show. Like there's help available. It's all around me. The love is all around me. So it's really, really important that you don't judge this, okay? And I that's really my number one message here, is stop apologizing for your tears, stop judging them, stop thinking there's something weak or wrong with you. To me, it's the strongest thing you can do. So much of the time, men especially judge themselves when they cry. But I'm telling you, there's nothing more beautiful than seeing a man cry, because he's allowing for vulnerability. And if you're a woman, you know what I'm talking about, right? There's something so sweet and so powerful about a man who cries, who allows himself to be vulnerable, to have that part of him. A man who just thinks he has to be stoic all the time and hold it all together, where's the fun in that? Where's the connection in that? When a man's willing to be soft and emotional and vulnerable, it can create more connection. And that's the point of tears, is it does create connection. And studies have actually shown that crying is part, we actually cry to create connection with other people, because it sends a message to others that we don't have it together and that we need help. So crying is sometimes a subconscious message to others that we're suffering here and we need you. We need your support. So when anybody cries, not just men, I feel closer to that person. Don't you? Don't you feel like your heart goes out to that person? You want to comfort them. You want to be there for them. It cuts out all the BS, all the BS of I know more than you know, or I have it together, look at me, all that ego stuff, okay? That just washes away when somebody is willing to get real and get vulnerable. And I just love that so much. So just remember that while you want to apologize for crying, when you think of yourself as weak for crying, you're actually being strong. You're allowing for that part of you to show up and realizing and really trusting that it's all going to be okay. So please don't apologize. Please don't judge yourself. Now, if you see somebody else crying, I want to address that too, because you can assist somebody else who's having those feelings, who's apologizing for crying, by first of all letting them have their feelings. So much of the time we feel uncomfortable when somebody else cries, and it's really important that you don't shut somebody down by trying to just make them feel better right away. It's just human nature, we all do it, but watch yourself. When somebody is crying, don't rescue them. Don't run to their rescue. Don't try to make them happy. Don't try to cheer them up. And that's our nature, right? As emotional eaters, we want everybody to be happy, happy, happy. But it's not necessarily the healthiest thing for that person in the moment where they're having feelings. Be with them. Give them the space to feel. You can make noises like or I'm so sorry you're hurting, or something, say a few words that lets them know that you're there and you care. But don't go and rescue, and don't go like massaging them or rubbing them either. So much of the time we want to caress somebody when they're hurting, but sometimes that can interrupt their flow. You know, when I'm crying, sometimes I want to be alone and I just want to let it flow. So when with somebody else, if they're just with me but not like touching me or trying to make me feel better, I actually have the space and I feel more at liberty to just keep letting it flow. Sometimes I'll stop crying if somebody starts rubbing my back or something, because it's distracting. It's distracting from the tears, from what it is I'm going through. So just remember that, is you don't have to fix somebody if they're crying. Let them have their tears. Let them know you're there for them. You can even say that I'm here for you, you know, or I'm here. And I love you, or I care about you, but don't rescue, okay? So important for emotional eaters especially. And watch the fact that you might want to rescue out of a need to stop feeling uncomfortable yourself, okay? Recognize in yourself your own uncomfortable feelings when somebody else is crying. Notice that and be with that. Don't try to cover that up by shutting somebody else down, by fixing them or trying to rescue them. And lastly, I just want to say that when you are vulnerable, you make it safe for other people to be vulnerable, and that is such a beautiful thing. So I encourage you to let yourself be, let yourself feel, let yourself cry, and you will make it safe for other people. Be the trailblazer on this. You know, let emotions come, be vulnerable, show other people what it's like to be vulnerable and that it's okay. Because that, you know, that could save their life, literally. You're being willing to feel, deal, and heal could pave the way for somebody else to feel, deal, and heal. And that could be a game changer for them. So to conclude, I just want to encourage you to be real. Allow yourself to be real. Be who you are. Let those feelings come. Let yourself cry when you feel the need. Let the grief just wash through you, because there's healing on the other side of that. So I hope this helps. I hope you'll remember this next time the feelings emerge in you and you feel like you need to cry. Go ahead and cry. Thank you so much. Remember to comment in the Heal Your Hunger Tribe on Facebook. I love you so much, and I'll see you on the next show.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.